What's going on? Today we're going to take a look at every single difference between the Canon R50 and the brand new Canon R50V. So while this isn't specifically a review of either of these cameras, I'm going to have plenty of photo and video examples throughout this video, and I'm also going to link every video I have about both of these cameras down in the description in case you want to learn even more about these cameras. Like always, I'm not going to waste your time, but if this video does help you out, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to my channel. Now let's get into it. Alright, so first up, the most noticeable difference between these cameras is of course the shape of the bodies. So the R50 has a standard SLR shape with this viewfinder up top here with a built-in flash, and it has a pretty deep grip, at least for how small of a camera this is. And then the R50V is more of a rangefinder style camera, so it doesn't have this hump on the top with the EVF and the flash. It also has a lot shallower of a grip, and it's more of like just a straight up rectangle versus the R50. Now we'll get more into this in a minute, but a lot of the body design differences have to do with the fact that the R50V is more of a dedicated video camera, when the R50 is kind of a hybrid photo and video oriented camera. Now both of these cameras can take great looking videos and great photos, but they do kind of lean separately into more photography and more video. Now on the topic of body differences, the R50V is smaller in pretty much every dimension and is also a couple grams lighter than the R50. And so that essentially makes the R50V now the smallest and lightest interchangeable lens camera that Canon sells. But obviously it's a really small difference compared to the R50, and you really can't tell the difference in weight between these two. Alright, next up, the sensors on these cameras as well as the processors are the exact same. So both of these cameras have the exact same 24 megapixel sensor and the exact same Digic X processor. That's obviously not a difference, that's the exact same with both of these, but I just want to say that for context. Both these cameras have the exact same resolution and like actual look and performance coming out of the sensor. Alright, next up, I mentioned that the R50V obviously doesn't have an EVF. There's nothing up top here like you see on the R50. So that's a pretty substantial difference, especially for photography. An EVF is really nice to have. And the R50 has a 2.36 million dot EVF. And also, while we're up on the top of the cameras here, the R50 has a built-in flash, while the R50V does not have any sort of built-in flash. So keep that in mind as well. Alright, next up, both of these cameras have fully articulating 3-inch touchscreens, which are really nice to use. But unfortunately, there is something to mention here with the screens. So the R50 has a 1.62 million dot screen, when the R50V for some reason got lowered to only 1.04 million dots. I'm really surprised by that, especially since this leans a lot heavier into video, when you're really going to need to be looking at the screen to make sure your video's dialed in, your exposure, colors, and focus and all that. So that's kind of an unexpected and surprising difference, and definitely something to keep in mind. Next up, for the top mode dials, the R50V has just a general mode dial where you can change between manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, program, video mode, and a couple of different other options. And then the R50V has pretty much a fully video-oriented top dial here. So it has 3 different custom video modes you can select from. Of course, the standard video mode, slow and fast, and then just one photo mode you can switch into. Now you can obviously still shoot in manual or aperture priority or shutter priority and all that stuff. You pretty much just have to change that in the menu instead of on the top dial. So it's just a little bit more complex for changing your photo modes, but of course a lot easier for changing your video modes. And kind of leaning more into that, the R50V has a zoom rocker up top here. It has a big record button up here rather than the shutter button. And it also even has a record button up front here, as well as a tally light showing when you're recording up front. Again, just a lot more video-oriented features and design with this. Alright, then if we move to the bottom of these cameras, you can see both of them have the standard 1/4 inch tripod thread, but the R50V has a second tripod thread on this right side here. And so it makes it a lot easier to mount this vertically on a tripod for recording vertical content. Also, the R50V actually has a UHS 2 SD card slot versus just a UHS 1 slot in the regular R50. So it allows for much faster SD cards, which are quicker for offloading footage. That also allows the R50V to have a much higher photo buffer versus the standard R50. And that also allows for much higher quality video, which we'll get into right now. So for video quality, the Canon R50 can record up to 4K 30 frames per second, and that's oversampled from 6K, so it's really sharp, good-looking 4K video, but it is only 8-bit 420. And then the R50V can actually support up to 4K 60 frames per second with an additional crop, and this is also oversampled from 6K. But this can also record 10-bit 422 video in every single mode and frame rate. And this can also record in Canon log, which basically just gives you much higher quality video, higher dynamic range, a lot more flexibility for editing and color grading, and just generally much higher quality video and much more flexible video out of the Canon R50V. Even though, like I said, the Canon R50 still does shoot really high quality, sharp, oversampled video, it just doesn't have quite the flexibility as the R50V. And the Canon also bumped up the max recording time with the R50V. So this can record continuously for up to 2 hours versus 1 hour on the Canon R50. However, the Canon R50 also would typically overheat really quick while recording 4K video. So typically I could record for like 30 minutes straight on this camera before it would really start having overheating issues. When the Canon R50V, from all of the testing I've done, I've never had this overheat on me. I've recorded for multiple hours straight in 4K 30 and 4K 60 with this, and I've never had a single issue with overheating, which is incredible. Alright, just cutting in real quick to mention something. The battery life on both of these cameras is essentially identical. For photos and for videos from all my testing, the battery life is genuinely like identical with these two cameras. So that does mean it's not really the best battery life, so I would definitely have a few spare batteries with you. I figured I should just mention that just in case you were wondering if the battery life's different between these two. Alright, next up, both of these cameras have a 3.5mm mic input, but the R50V actually has a 3.5mm headphone output as well, so you can monitor your audio as you're recording. Next up, the R50V has a lot better video assist features like zebras, false color, it has log view assist modes. Also, the digital level actually stays while you're recording video. On most of Canon's other cameras, if you have the digital level on, as soon as you hit record, it'll just go away for some reason. The Canon R50V finally solved that, so you can have the digital level on at all times. And finally, at the time of recording this video at least, the Canon R50 has a retail price of $679 for the body only, and the R50V is a little bit cheaper at only $650 for the body only. So the R50V is actually the slightly more affordable camera if price is your biggest concern, but realistically they're at such a similar price that that's probably not as big of a factor as all the other differences. So I'll let you conclude based on all the differences between these, which one you think is best for you. My personal conclusion is if you do anything more than 50% photography, I would look into the R50 instead of the R50V. But if you do anything more than 50% video content, I would look into the R50V, and I think this is a much better camera for video. But at the end of the day, both of these are still great cameras, and you really can't go wrong with either for any type of content. But that's it for me. I really hope this video helped you out. If it did, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.